Oh yeah, I forgot I was going to do a countdown there and I was supposed to smile and I was distracted. My ADD is strong today. Whoa. Alright. Let's see who shows up. Hopefully we get a live body or two in here. We're going to get started in, well, like 2 or 3 minutes. So they usually start a few minutes earlier, and I was distracted trying to do everything at the last minute. So we'll see who shows up, and if you've got any questions, please post them in the chat. And we're going to get started here in about 2 minutes, right at 6 o'clock. So, whoops. All right. Yeah, 2 minutes. So if you're just showing up, you're in the right place. This is the Herbal Open Forum, and I'm Bob Linde. Hopefully I'll say something, hey, vaguely intelligent this evening. This is our monthly event, and we'll get started here in just a few minutes. Try not to cut my head off there. Yay, there's, all right, we got more people. So if you're just joining us, feel free to post your questions and we'll add it to the queue. We've only got a couple questions today, so we got room for lots of cool new questions. And yes, I got yours, Kristen. I got to watch my clock here. Multitasking. If I'm lucky, we're going to be joined by a puppy dog here shortly. So, you know, be a good day for puppy dog questions. And we're going to get started. Looks like we got 1 minute to go. Hopefully more folks will show up and join us here. And yay, there's more people. All right. It's always interesting. I can't actually see who's in there, but I can tell there's people in there. So we're going to get to... Hey, oh, Kansas, awesome. Well, welcome. We're going to get started here in about less than a minute. Oh, there we go. It's 6 o'clock. We're going to get started. So if you're just joining us, feel free to post any questions in the chat. We will add them to the queue as we get going here. If you don't know it, I'm Bob Linde. I'm a registered herbalist and an acupuncture physician here in St. Petersburg, Florida, and this is the Herbal Open Forum. And it's something I started way back when everything was shut down and I wasn't doing any of my fun classes or anything for the general public. I kind of missed the connections we made, so I started doing this then. And it was really a lot of fun, interesting challenge for me for anything that you throw at me. And I decided to keep it going even afterwards because we were reaching people out in Kansas. A few foreign countries have shown up and so forth. So if you don't know it, you can find out more about, oh, awesome. That's super cool. You can find out more about the clinic here and all the wonderful practitioners we have here at AcuHerbals, AcuHerbals at .com. There we go. I don't know what I'm talking about. And traditionsherbschool.com to learn more about our classes. And I'm doing it from a different location if you've been here before. I could have done it from home, but we've got a class going on tonight in the classroom where I usually do it. So I decided to hide my treatment room, and we're going to have two things going on at the same time. So if you hear some noise in the background, that's what it is. And if you're in the Tampa Bay area, you can certainly come by and check out probably one of the largest apothecaries. We have Western and Chinese herbs here, some Ayurvedic herbs, and a lot of bioregional herbs. We carry a lot of stuff from Central South America, and probably, I'm going to say about 20 herbs that I've harvested here from our property on half-acre teaching garden or from my yard, South St. Pete. And we've got all of our classes, most of our classes, are both online and in person. So even if you're out in some place like Kansas, you can still catch a lot of our classes. And we have both a Western herbal and Chinese program here, as well as a lot of standalone classes. And there's some cool stuff coming up. I know this one's off a ways, but yeah, it usually gets pretty full. Herbal Animal Care is coming up in September 28th and 29th. And if I'm lucky, our model for that class is coming in. Andy is a sweet puppy that's going to be joining us for that. This coming Thursday, August 1st, is a class, everything you wanted to know about shiitake, and they always make cool stuff with it and all kinds of good stuff. Next Friday is a free herb-drug interaction class. You do need to register. I'm going to do that on Zoom, so that's something you can catch no matter where you are. And there's going to be Western Herbal Reproductive class on August 8th coming up. I will be away at the FSOMA conference, Florida State Oriental Medicine Association, August 16th to the 18th. I'm teaching a class on treatment and diagnosis of melanated patients. Excuse me, subject that's not talked about enough, as well as hidden food sensitivities as a roadblock to effective care. And again, one of those things that's going to be really good for both any type of medical practitioner, herbalist, or acupuncturist. I almost missed one on the 15th of August, Ayurvedic medicine and reproductive health taught by Gray. And I don't know, she's taught a class or two a few years ago for us, but Sierra is back in town and is doing a class on August 22nd on herbs and mental health, which is her area of expertise. Our next open forum is on the 30th of August. August 31st from 10 to 3 is a plant sale. If you don't know it, we have, we grow about 150 different medicinal plants, and we probably have about half that for sale here, which is always available, but we'll be putting stuff out and doing some markdowns on a few of our plants and so forth. And in August 31st, the same day as the plant sale, the American Herbalist Guild chapter is going to be having their next meeting, and that's going to be down at Dragon Rises School of Oriental Medicine in the Bradenton area. You can find out more on the West Coast chapter of the American Herbalist Guild website. We're going to do a short herb walk around their property, which is going to be super interesting. And they've just started. I donated about $150 worth of Chinese herbs. They've just started up a Chinese medicinal herb garden there, so we're going to see how that's doing and talk about some of those herbs. And then probably the director of the school is going to be there and give us kind of a tour of the Chinese herbal apothecary that they have there and tell us a little bit about Chinese medicine herby stuff. So we're really excited. This is going to be the first time we visited there. And I always like to talk about the American Herbalist Guild. So their conference is coming up October, I think it's 4th through the 7th in Black Mountain, North Carolina. I know the location. I've been there for the Medicines of the Earth conference, so I'm super excited about the location. Beautiful area, nice food and lodging, and the herb walks there. I don't know if they have herb walks scheduled, but I'll be teaching a class there, actually a similar class to what I'm teaching at the Florida State Oriental Medicine Association. And during that same weekend of that, it's on here somewhere. I don't see it. But we've got a class going here at the school on Thai topical herbal medicine, where a guest speaker's coming in. So I'm super excited about that. But sadly, I'm going to miss it. So if you're just joining us, please post any questions you may have in the chat, and I will add to the queue. And we'll go ahead and get started. This is very much a free, yo, what's up, Michigan? I'm looking forward to playing with your puppy here in a second. Hey, Marcus, good to see you. Dang, long time no chat. That horse chestnut has similar uses for malaria and fevers as a chinchona. Ooh, good question. Let me write that one down because I'm going to miss it. Chestnut, cinchona, I want to talk bark. Alright, there we go. So I'm going to try to keep up with all of this as we can, but feel free to post your questions. So I've got a couple questions. We got room for a bunch more, so bring it. But I'm going to do things a little out of order. And there was a question about hemochromatosis, which oddly enough, I'm going to say I'm about as expert as you can get because I have hemochromatosis. And hemochromatosis is fancy talk for it's a genetic condition that your body inappropriately stores iron. I get the joke all the time because half the people around me could use some extra iron. And I've got too much, and literally, besides diet modification, and we'll talk about some other things that I do, I donate blood on a regular basis in order to ensure that my iron stores don't get too high. And the hemochromatosis for me is a fairly it's going to be, say it's been about 5, maybe 6 years. I'm a bad judge of time. And it was, nobody in my family that I knew of had it. As it turned out, there's more than one type of hemochromatosis. I am a genetic carrier for both. It was like my mom had one type, my dad the other. Neither one of them did we know had any issues with iron. And so when the doctor got the genetic test, he was like, it was kind of like a dog with one green eye and one blue eye. And I was like, okay, great. So it was interesting. And oddly enough, I had gone in to the doctor. I don't go very often. I'm a bad patient. So about once every 10 years, I probably go in to see the doctor and get some blood work. And honestly, I had a concern. I was getting some right upper quadrant pain, so just under my ribs. And I was like, oh, it's probably my gallbladder. I've had one too many French fries in my day. It's finally come back to attack me. And literally thinking I was going to, have the doctor tell me it was an issue. And as long as I was going, I'm going to get some blood work and so forth. And I kind of, as a matter of course, always tell people to get a full iron panel and some other things, B12. And so I went to a doctor that was willing to do some additional testing like that. Sure can. Horse and doggies. Cool. And I got you, Dinah. So I went in and it came back and I was actually shocked. I was kind of disappointed. I make fun of the way I eat sometimes, but honestly, I eat generally very healthy. I don't drink soda. I don't add sugar to anything. I eat my veggies and I exercise appropriately and all that. And my blood work comes back and I was borderline diabetic, my cholesterol was elevated, and my iron was off the charts. And so I was upset. They wanted to already put me on 2 medications. Of course, a statin drug, which I'm not a big fan of, for the elevated cholesterol. It was not scary elevation. And the other one was metformin for my borderline blood sugar issue. And I was like, I think I'm going to wait on those, thank you. But with the elevated iron, could that cause an elevation of those numbers? And they were like, oh yeah, that could do it. And I was like, well, cool. Let's find out why my iron's so high. I'm not sitting there eating an entire cow every day. I don't take iron supplementation. In general, men shouldn't take iron supplementation, and women frequently will. But that's the biggest difference when you look at a men's multivitamin and a woman's multivitamin, is whether or not it has iron in it. That's one of the major differences. And so I was like, try again in a month. I did a little extra exercise, paid attention, and got my stuff quickly back under control, and then started the process. Ooh, you guys are getting good questions. I love it. Feverfew, harvest. All right, I got much to say about Feverfew, so good one. Immediately was able to get those numbers just inside the range where the doctor stopped hassling me, and continued to then modify my diet. I do like my animal proteins, and so I reduced that dramatically. But I did an interesting thing. So too much iron causes inflammation in the body, and so that can be everything from joint pain, discoloration of the skin, elevated blood sugar, elevated liver enzymes, pancreas issues, kidney issues. So it can be a host of problems if you're inappropriately storing iron. So what I decided was I wanted to modify my diet, but I really like food, so I was like, I didn't want to modify it too much, and looked at some of the science behind it. And usually I'm making recommendations for people like don't have a lot of tannin-containing drinks like tea and coffee in particular. I enjoy kratom sometimes, even plantago, plantain, the herb, all contain tannins. And so for somebody who's low in iron, I was like, make sure you don't drink any of those things while you're eating iron-rich food. And you can increase your iron absorption by adding vitamin C or an acid. Even certain fruit juices that are high in acid can be helpful in increasing your iron absorption. So what did I do? I did the opposite. I made sure I drank black tea with iced tea, my personal favorite, with any of my iron-rich meals, whether that was a spinach salad or some chicken or fish or anything along those lines. I like shrimp. Shrimp is very high in iron. And then I reduced, or for all practical purposes, eliminated red meat and increased my vegetable proportions and was regularly donating blood. And so I recently went and got some follow-up blood work to see how I was doing with donating blood every 2 months, diet modification. Turns out I was anemic. I had done too good a job, and she was like, let's stop doing that. So I got to eat a little bit more variety of foods. I did a little bit less of that, so we're going to see how I come out, I think next week actually. We're going to see how we can do it. But I will say that you can, once you get those iron levels under control, you can primarily control your iron through diet, a mostly vegetarian, but even there's iron in a lot of vegetables, but it is the least absorbable form. So there's heme and non-heme types of iron. So the heme irons are the ones that come with animal products, the non-heme plant products. The non-heme is pretty hard to absorb, so you're getting a smaller percentage. If you add tannins to the mix, you're basically getting none, so you can eat lots and lots of vegetables. I also took milk thistle to be somewhat protective of my liver because it was inflamed. It was actually enlarged. It's now back to normal size and normal function. And I added in alpha-lipoic acid, which is helpful for a variety of things, everything from neuropathy, nerve issues, to functionality of the liver and the pancreas, honestly. And so my hope is because I don't like needles, that I can donate blood way less frequently. And since I like black tea anyway, I can continue to use that and keep my diet in the realm of healthy and making sure that I'm not accidentally consuming excess iron. Probably once a year check, because there is an increased risk of arthritis pain that's unexplained, that's iron accumulation, liver issues, to include liver cancer, which is a little scary. So every 2 years I'm going to go get an MRI to make sure there's nothing squirrely going on with that. And sometimes we'll see the inflammation, and that's what was my warning signs, was causing unexplained elevated blood values that shouldn't have been elevated. So the nice thing is I was pretty freaked out when I first heard it and when I saw those numbers, and once I kind of did my homework on that and made the changes that were within the realm of reason, hemochromatosis is kind of like, whatever, it's just weird. And now I know way too much about it. There's certainly other things that can be done, but those are the biggies with all of it, is diet modification, blood donation when necessary, and tannins around your iron-rich foods, and minimize your red meats in particular, but really doing your homework. Things like certain fish, shellfish, of course, all the things that are my favorites, those are all the ones that are higher in iron, so I have to limit the yummy stuff a little bit. And I'm going to take, I'm going to use for neuropathy, everything, neuropathy, hands and feet. All right. I'm going to actually hit the Feverfew. That's just an easy one. We'll crank that out. Hands and feet. There we go. I can spell. And I always try to say what I'm writing down, so in case I miss. Sometimes people start chatting really fast. I'm like, crap, I missed one. So if you don't hear me mention your question, yell at me. So I think I got everything that's come through so far. So Feverfew, this is a wonderful annual herb. Although it clearly by its name is used for fevers, one of the things it's better known for, because there's lots of herbs we can use for fevers and run the gamut of usefulness. Feverfew is cooling, hence, it reduces fever or heat. And I like it for migraines. It doesn't work for every type of migraine. And every time I get somebody in with migraines, usually, clinic of last resort before they come see the crazy herbalist, I was like, uh-oh, here comes a puppy. Hi. Oh, come here, puppy. Hi. We're going to make you famous, puppers. So, we'll talk about the puppy here in a minute. Hi. Yeah, sweet puppy. Hi, you're a good dog. So, if you hear some snuffling in the background, you'll know what it is. Have fun in class. That was silly. So Feverfew is great for migraine. So I always ask the new client if they've used it. Most have, and I'm going to say a majority of people have also said it didn't work for them for migraines. And my experience has been that the Feverfew works best if it's fresh. And so that's, and so when's the right time to harvest it? I'll quote David, I believe it's David Winston, the best time to harvest an herb is when you're there and the herb's there. And fresh is best. It is very easy to grow. You can grow it in a pot. It is an annual, so it will die off. If you're using it for fevers, it's fine if it's dried. That totally works. But for migraines, I totally recommend it fresh. You can go just pick a leaf off the plant and it works fine. The next best choice is either fresh tincture, i.e. the plant was picked fresh and immediately tinctured, or fresh freeze-dried is like the next best thing if you're like, I got a brown thumb, I'm not growing anything. And certainly, because it's an annual and it dies back, there's going to be periods of times when you don't have access to it. One of the problems is it's also very drying, and I like its flavor. It's a very intense bitter, but then I really like bitter. It's too dry and too bitter for a lot of people. And to the point where if you're just like, I'm going to just eat a leaf every day, which is frequently the recommended dosage for migraines, for prevention. And then you can go up to like 3 or 4 leaves if you get a breakthrough migraine. And some people get like mouth ulcerations, so sort of gets dried, irritated, in which case, wrap it in something yummy to avoid the taste. That said, I think the taste is important. I think we need more bitter in our lives with that stuff. As a general rule, the plant will be more bitter when it's in flower, and so I find it best to pick when in flower. Its energy is going into those aerial parts. For using it for reducing fevers, I don't think it matters as much, but I still prefer the flowers even more than the leaf. So that said, if you're combining it with other diaphoretic herbs to make you break a sweat, it doesn't matter as much. And I will say, for migraines, Feverfew is oftentimes a standalone. Hey, pickles! But for fevers, it's more common to make a formula around that where you add things like chamomile, elder, and whatever, however that's manifesting. So grow it. It's it's like a tiny little perfect daisy looking flower. It will reseed itself. It will grow in Florida, which is value added. But really, if you're going to purchase it, I find buying dried herb of Feverfew for migraines is, I won't call it useless. It still works occasionally, but it is not. If it does work, it's not dramatic. It's like, I think it helps a little bit. Maybe I had one less migraine, or it wasn't as severe. The fresh best, fresh freeze-dried and fresh tinctured next best. After that, whatever. All right, Feverfew is an easy one. I like that question. And horse chestnut, it's funny. The malaria and mosquito-borne diseases, Mosquito-borne diseases are a growing concern. We now have, we had, dengue fever in Tampa this summer already. That started here in Florida, where it's not something we see normally here. That's more of a tropical thing. Last year we had more than a half a dozen cases of malaria in Sarasota, about an hour south of here. So we're seeing more and more concerns over mosquito-borne diseases in general. And the cinchona bark that you mentioned is a South American herb, grows in northern South America. I believe we can grow that in Florida. I've not found a source for it yet, and that is one of the things that changed the treatment. Malaria has been a scourge all over the world in tropical America. England made it famous as they discovered. They took it from the natives. They didn't discover it. They were exposed to it. They were like, "This is a miracle," and so it got over harvested in an attempt to use this single herb all over the world, even though it had a very small growing range. And the reality is, mosquito-borne diseases, malaria in particular, is a worldwide problem, and there has always been a variety of native bioregional plants that are used in varying degrees of success. I always call it the princess tree, but it's not the princess tree. There's like 3 different native plants in Florida that can be used. Horse chestnut being one of them. There's also buttonbush, has been used for malaria as well as yellow fever. And what we find is there's a few reoccurring things that are really bitter and dry tend to help malaria. And a few of the other ones, and frequently tannins. But although horse chestnut does have a history of it, it's usually in combination with other plants. But my favorite, and I'm going to put it in the chat so everybody can see what the heck crazy words I'm saying. There we go. I got to find the chat. The sweet Annie, which is a Chinese herb, as well as a Qinghao is the Chinese herb. It's also its proper Latin name, Artemisia. Helps if I know how to spell. Annua. Also in Western herbal medicine, it's known as sweet Annie. This has a 99% success rate. And I've not had success growing it here. It doesn't mean you can't. At least here in St. Pete, I've had poor success. It definitely grows wild as you move further north, grows in China, and can be a really prolific plant. I've heard of it growing in like the Virginia area, Carolinas, and that it can be like a weed that's a little bit invasive. And although the research is on an alkaloid extracted from this sweet Annie, I use the whole plant, and I have yet to have had a person come down with malaria, and they've all been exposed to it where people around them got it. Like my best example ever was the shots, or the pills that they take as anti-malarial pills are okay. They cause hallucinations for some people, and so psychotic breaks. But the reality is it's only about 60-70% successful. And so I had some people going to East Africa, and the folks who were on medication got malaria. People with the sweet Annie, none of them got it. All of the people who didn't take anything got malaria. And so I've had people in India, Vietnam, and so forth use it. But I just saw a report, I think it was in the last 2 days, that artemisian, the extracted alkaloid, is being used for over, I think it was 60% of all cases of malaria because of its high success rate, minimum side effects, and it's beneficial for a variety of other issues. But I had heard about there being cases of resistance to this alkaloid a number of years ago, but it's now made the news, and maybe it's just in a new area. I had heard about it happening in Asia, in Southeast Asia. Now it's happening in Africa, where the majority of cases of malaria are. Something like 80 or 90% of all cases of malaria are in Africa. So it's an epidemic there, and it kills lots of elderly and children in particular. And so we're seeing now cases of resistance to it because it's a single chemical, and that's where we run into problems. So I'm going to continue to use the whole plant, dried plant, making tea, or I have a 5-to-1 concentrate that I regularly use to great success. I've probably up to 20 people, if not more, that have used that for up to 3 months at a time for prevention, which goes contrary to what some of the research says, but I've used it effectively as a whole plant, not as a supplement. So yes, think cold, bitter, and there's nothing wrong with combining it. And there is a difference between active infection of malaria versus chronic infection of malaria. And so some cases of malaria become chronic, in which case we're looking at immune issues and so forth, that we can use any number of aromatic plants to help with that. I frequently use Angelica dongguai, astragalus, huangqi, and oddly enough, he shou, which is Polygonum multiflora, all have been researched to be very helpful. You frequently will see anemia, blood deficiency in Chinese medicine, or yin deficiency, which is a type of deficient heat. So we use these cooling, moistening herbs that also seem to have some benefit for this particular spirochete that is malaria. But even though there isn't a lot of modern research to support and I'm going to say short-term use. 3 months is the maximum I've used the Sweet Annie, the Artemisia annua. It's classically talked about for treatment. I use it for prevention. Because it is very dry, very bitter, I don't like to give it any longer than 3 months because there is the potential of elevated liver enzymes from the long-term use of it. Can't use it during pregnancy, and it's just unpleasant to drink it. So it's one of those things where I think it's good to take a break from it. If you're not at risk of malaria, I'd rather people kept taking it. So I discourage the use of cinchona bark. It's very hard to find. There's a lot of adulteration with it, and it has such a limited growing range and over-harvesting that even if you can find it, it basically was unavailable during COVID because people thought that was the cure for COVID. It wasn't. I knew some people who tried to use it. It didn't work. It's not one of those things I generally recommend. The Sweet Annie does a better job for malaria. Oh, let's get the interesting one. There was, I'm going to try to read it. Where's my glasses? There we go. Possible diagnosis of a cyst on the bone near the wrist. That they may need to create a bone graft, and they were a little confused as to what a cyst was. And was it causing a hole in the bone? Is it something that can be used with comfrey externally, or maybe some other things? And worried about the idea of a skin graft or a bone graft in general. And so the reality is there's different types of cysts. They can be like we think about cystic acne, things like that, in which case it can be an open sore on the surface. We can have Baker cysts, which are just lumpy things that are more fluid-filled sacs, but don't come out of the skin. They'll most likely will never rupture. And in this case, I'm not sure what type of cyst, and they can adhere to the bone. So a lot of cysts, if we don't get all of the tissue out, it just regrows another cyst. The reality is it can attach to a bone, and when we're talking about the wrist, those are tight. There's like, is it 7 small bones in the wrist. So it can kind of put fibrous tissues out that will pull that wrist bone out of place, or it can start to grow into the bone, making it weak or actually killing the bone, and then you have like a dead bone in there, and it creates a whole new set of problems. Herbs that can be helpful, comfrey, so it's not something that needs to be healed per se, but needs to be reabsorbed. Cysts are they're not tumors by any stretch of the imagination, but they're inappropriate growth of tissues, and the type of tissue can vary. And we've all seen it on the fatty lipomas are kind of like a type of a cyst on dogs as they get old, or if they got poor dog food, they get those fatty lipomas, cyst-like. If it is going into the bone, it becomes, I won't call it like go to the ER, but it becomes a more serious issue, and kind of nice to have a wrist that works. Things that might be helpful, topically, you can use drawing herbs. Poke, Phytolacta americana, topically could be helpful. Castor oil, topically, might be helpful. Also, Western herbs, cleavers, and chickweed is a classic combination for lumpy things. That can be really helpful. Strengthening the bone can be helpful, so any of your mineral-rich herbs might help to strengthen the bone in case you do need something done. And in this case, avoiding infection and so forth, and working on the immune system to ensure you have adequate mineral absorption. So getting somebody to look at stomach acid and whether that's adequate, the HCl, the hydrochloric acid, to make sure your vitamin D levels are adequate, eating those mineral-rich foods. And as long as it's not painful in the diet, again, not seeing imaging and all that, as long as the doctor doesn't say to immobilize it, if it's not painful, literally just moving your wrist to a range of motion comfortably to make sure the blood, fluids, and so forth are there. If you do get a bone graft, sometimes they're able to just do the graft and there's no problem. There's oftentimes choices between cadaver bones and synthetic. Now they're doing 3D imaging, or not 3D imaging, 3D printer. My brother's wife had some cool thing where she got a 3D printed bone that they put in her foot. It was like freaky space age stuff. And it's been very successful. So it's one of those things, get more information, find out the do's and don'ts from Western medicine, and then looking at getting both an overall energetic perspective of your own health, and then cysts in general are fluid filled sacs that aren't supposed to be there. So looking at your internally gentle lymphatics, also for bone health, looking at your mineralization, and keep everything moving. I would not recommend comfrey on that, internally or externally, because it's not going to really address the cyst most likely. And you may end up with some inappropriate growth, because you already have an overgrowth of not an overgrowth of skin, but kind of a stimulation of inappropriate growth there. And one of the alkaloids in comfrey, the allotonin, does very rapidly stimulate skin growth. And so depending on what type of tissue that cyst is, that might actually make it worse. So I'd probably stay away from that. Along those lines, I would not put castor oil on a dog cyst topically. The only reason I say that, the dog's going to lick it off, and then they'll vomit and poop themselves. And so You could put the cone of shame on it so that you can ensure that they're not licking it off or it was up around there. Using the cleavers and chickweed topically or internally would be fine. Those are very good for dogs, or not particularly good, but it's safe for dogs. The same thing, poke is great, but not if the dog's eating it. It is toxic. So we have to be in there, right, puppy? We have to be careful about what a dog can lick off of its skin. We think of topicals as very safe. Humans are generally smart enough not to eat the plasters on them, but a dog or a cat will definitely do it. I also think that a lot of the cysts that we see on dogs are a food sensitivity, and I've seen those literally get reabsorbed just from getting a food that's more appropriate, working on the gut flora of the dog. They have dog and cat specific probiotics that can be some really good stuff. But usually I look at the food, and then looking at that chickweed and cleavers is a nice easy way to work on dogs and cats. Cats are a little bit more challenging to get the herbs in there, but oh, where should we go now? Dang, you guys got good. Thank you. I actually really appreciate the questions. Usually I'm like, come on, I know y'all got questions, ask them. Safflower oil for a dog. Who said safflower removes fluids. Could it break a cyst up though? Safflower, we think of that as, hey, it's pricey. It's blood moving, so safflower is made from the seeds. I believe it's the seeds of Chinese herb honghua and red flower, because it has a red flower. And I usually look at some sort of fixed pain. It'll oftentimes be discolored around the cyst. That said, it does have a mild lymphatic action, and the safflower oil, as far as I know, is safe for dogs and cats. How much effect it will have on a cyst is questionable. So I like topicals. They're hard on dogs, unless you're putting the cone of shame on their head or shaving the area where we can get the products really on there with herbs. And doing that long enough without the dog tearing it off, it's challenging. So I usually look at food and internal herbs for the dog more, in which case the safflower oil isn't appropriate internally, really only externally. So, and as far as, I didn't know we were going to know all the doggy stuff. It's kind of like humans. There isn't that like this brand is good and this one's bad. Both on humans and dogs, usually recommend changing brands or looking for specific strains based on what the particular disharmony is. Like Saccharomyces is particularly good for loose stools. A lot of your other ones are better for Lactobacillus is better for vaginal health. So really getting as specific as possible, or just running through brands. I do like the dog specific ones, the dog and cat specific ones, but there's probably 24 companies out there. They're all very similar. Mixing it in with something yummy for the dog or cat to get them to do it. And it's not that all dogs need probiotics, but if your pet's got gastrointestinal problems, certainly, but if they've ever done a round of antibiotics, even if they've had severe food poisoning where they ate a lot of grass and were puking for 2 or 3 days, that's where our problem is, that they've disrupted their gut flora. And so running through a bottle or two and going through, go through a bottle, change brands, walk your dog freely, because they're frequently going to get some change in bowel movements when we create a change like that. I do like to start small. Some dog foods do have probiotics already in them, also the cat foods. They're usually not particularly effective. They're not bad. They're just not enough to counteract the effects of severe food poisoning or antibiotics. So get something a little bit stronger, like a probiotic with a blend. With dogs, there's less strains available, so if you can find 3 or more strains, you're usually doing a good job. So where humans, you'll see like 20 strains of stuff that's harder to find with the animals. And burdock is totally fine to give for pets. That can be effective for, I don't think of it as a heavy hitter for cysts, but it's good for inflammation in the gut. It's mild lymphatic, and especially if they're having some sort of a reaction to food, environment, and so forth. So burdock is something we regularly give to both dogs and cats. Really safe, but like, you put on there, for a lot of them that does need to be ground up so that it's more bite-sized. Dogs have a hard time chewing roots, so do humans. And yes, Susan, making sure that you're not giving the dog, fats aren't bad for a dog, those are fine, but the giving castor oil or any oil internally for a dog or cat is not their friend. Certainly you can do it if you don't mind them pooping everywhere in your house and puking uncontrollably for a few hours. So that's generally a bad thing to do. Dogs and cats are special population animals that can quickly get dehydrated if they're uncontrolled vomiting. So something like that, you'd be better off with veterinarian care, because it is so easy for them to get dehydrated. Like they would need an IV fluids as they were going through there. All right, whoops. We did that. We're going to come back to that. All right. Man, you guys are making me work tonight. I like it. Bring it. Book for dogs and horses, I really like, and for dogs in particular, I really like the 4 Paws, 5 Directions. It's the cutest name ever. 5 Directions. You can find a link to Amazon. It's fairly inexpensive. It's paperback. I've got a link on the Traditions herbschool.com under resources. There's book resources, basically books Bob likes. You pay the same price. I make $1 commission off of it. So yes, buy mine. It is based in Chinese medicine. You don't need to understand Chinese medicine. I think they do a phenomenal job of explaining how to acknowledge it with dogs and cats. They have acupressure in there, which I find very effective, and again, very easy to locate. And if done daily, can have dramatic impact on a dog's health. But they also have Western herbs, they have Chinese formulas, talk a lot about diet, supplements, and a more modern look at it that I find really you don't need to be a brilliant herbalist of any particular study type to use that book. So I have all the really fancy, like, high-end veterinary, acupuncture ones. I usually, I'm going to say 90% of the time, I use the 4 Paws book. It's the one I recommend to all my students, and it served me well. I believe there is a book, I don't have it on the website. If you email me properly, I believe it's Dr. Shi, and he's out of Gainesville. It is strictly Chinese medicine, and it's horses is where I'm going with all of this. I have a few things horse related, but his book has the classic Chinese primary herbs, single herbs we use, and the classic formulas for Chinese energetic patterns. So you can't like look up colic or something and find a way to do it. You have to understand some of the Chinese medicine. But that book does a really good job of whether it's safe for a variety of animals and gives you dosing for those animals. Doesn't do acupressure or anything like that. Oh, it's so funny. Did I bring it? I did not. I was like, I'm going to talk about their animal care class, and I have a chart for the acupressure, but there's cool acupuncture points. The other side's gross, so I won't show you. But we have some 3D models on dogs, cats, and I have paper ones for horse acupressure. But his book has llamas, camels, horses, ducks, rabbits, dogs and cats. Pretty much the most of your critters you're likely to find on a farm. He has dosing and whether or not you can use it for a particular critter. But email me at the school's email address, and I can send you a direct link to find that book. It's a little pricey. It's probably $150 or something, but it's one of the few books that has such a range of critters. I find it really helpful. And with horses, formulation for horses is kind of interesting. For dogs, we basically we look at dogs and we address the weight. There's certainly a few things that we have to stay away from or keep in low dosing, but overall, dogs are small four-legged humans, and so really big dog gets human dosages, and a 50-pound dog would get half the human dosage, and generally really easy to work with dogs. Cats, the smaller we get a critter, the more challenging it is to get dosing. Cats are a little more finicky when it comes to food. And you would think a horse, horses are 1,000 pounds or whatever, and it's like, oh my God, this is 10 times the human size, so do I have to give like pounds of an herb to a horse? The reality is you don't. Horses, I'm a formulator for some horse herbal formulas and dog and cat formulas. And so for horses, we usually go up to about 1.5 to 2 times the human dosage on the formulation. You can certainly go higher. Their digestive tracts are a little bit different. And you usually mix it with just nutritious things like oats and so forth. But at that, what would appear to be a low dose by comparison, is surprisingly effective for horses. And so I've had really good success with like arthritis and so forth with horses. Also probiotics can be an issue, but it's always interesting. In the same way humans, we don't always eat what's good for us. We have emotions that screw up a variety of things for us. I find dogs, cats, and horses also, they have a pack mentality. They recognize a change in their pack, and they sometimes eat things that are really bad for them or eat to excess. They need movement the same way humans, your critters need to be moving just like your humans need to be moving. But recognizing that grief is real in the animal world as it is in the human world, and we frequently see the similar manifestations. The problem is it's harder to explain it. So, and I'll talk dog and to other things. If your kid goes off to college and the dog's still there in the house, to that dog, that child is dead. Because they've left the house, they've either abandoned them or because they don't exist anymore in their plane of understanding. And that can be challenging when a kid leaves for a semester. So there will be a change in the pack order. There's a change in their emotional status that dogs will be, and cats will be depressed because they don't understand kids go to college or whatever they may do. And so it's really important to recognize when we're working with any animal that there is an emotional component that the animal can't tell us in words, and we can't explain this odd change in status and stuff. And just like Andy's like, my mom's vanished, so I gotta distract her a little bit. So we can give herbs for that kind of stuff. Hey, Stevie. Gynostema it's important to recognize that's Gynostema pentaphyllum is the Chinese herb Jiao Gulan. It's easy to get it confused with the Ayurvedic herb Genema sylvestre, also known as Gumar, the destroyer of sugar. So Gynostema pentaphyllum, the Jiao Gulan is what you have up there. Awesome that, yeah, where you are, it should grow really, really well. Just protect it from frost. It does fairly well down here. Here we protect it from heat, make sure we get enough water. I usually grow it in the shade to good success. It's funny, it's important to recognize that it's not ginseng. It is compared to ginseng in its nourishing properties, but it has very different effects. So if we look at Chinese ginseng and American ginseng, even those two have different, they're both nourishing, they're both adaptogens to help you adapt to stress. They're not this miracle thing that cure all illnesses the way they're portrayed. None of our adaptogens are. Both the American and Chinese ginsengs are moistening and nourishing, but the Chinese ginseng is slightly warm, the American ginseng slightly cool. There is a lot of other herbs that use the word ginseng that have no relationship whatsoever, but they're comparable sometimes to, in that they're an adaptogen. Some are nourishing, some aren't. So Siberian ginseng, the Eleutherococcus, is inappropriately named, no relationship to ginseng whatsoever, is very drying and somewhat stimulating. And so very different from either the Chinese or the American ginseng. There is Taizi Shen, some people call it Prince Seng root. Again, no relationship to ginseng, but is called Japanese ginseng sometimes. And that has a focus on the lungs and is even more nourishing than either the Chinese or the American ginseng, and slightly cool. The Jiao Gulan, the Genema pentaphyllum, is ever so slightly cool, to the point where I would say it doesn't really matter. It's very neutral as far as wet or dry. Volumes of research, just like we see with the true ginsengs, in longevity, blood sugar regulation, anti-inflammatory, helping to adapt to stress, that adaptogen property. It's been used for cancer and a variety of things. I tend to use it when, A, it's inexpensive, it's very easy to grow, doesn't taste that bad, and its benefits, just like all of those herbs I just rattled off, is from its long-term use and whilst making other changes. I don't believe you can cure cancer or diabetes by giving somebody Jiao Gulan. Will it reduce some of the inflammation associated with dysregulated blood sugar? Probably. What I like it for is the extreme fatigue that can come from some end-stage diseases, like, uncontrolled blood sugar issues, cancer, going through chemotherapy and things like that, in which case I find it helps to maintain the red and white blood cell levels. It gives people a little bit of energy when their tank is empty, is what I really like it for. When the digestion is really weak, no appetite, and the best you can do is get them to sip water. Because you're using leaves of the Jiao Gulan, then you're just making a tea, and it doesn't taste that bad. So long-term use, not afraid of dosage. Like, I'll do 5 or 10 grams per cup per cup of water. A long steep to get it a little bitter. Even an overnight steep is really good with that. And it's nice because you can grow it. I recently, sometime in the last few years, I found out there's actually 2 species of the, or subspecies, I guess. There's a sweet one and a bitter one. And they both grow really well. I honestly, the only way I know to tell the difference is to taste it. So it's an odd one, but if you taste it, you're like, wow, that's really pleasant. It's almost like not saccharin, that's gross, like a sweet Aztec or something, like there's like a sweetness but like a little back end of bitter like stevia, then you've probably got the sweet species. If you've got one where you're like put it in your mouth and you're like, oh dang, that's intense, I'm not sure I want this as a cup of tea, you got the bitter one, and it's not that bitter, it's not super bitter, but it's like there's no sweetness on it. And you can do cuttings from either one, it will continue to produce that same thing. I would say the bitter one is more cooling, where the sweet one is probably neutral in temperature. The bitter one probably has a better action for things like blood sugar and cancer, and the sweet one has more to do with the extreme fatigue, exhaustion kind of idea. That said, I've only recently discovered the sweet one, and I was just throwing it at people left and right. So, okay, cool. And yeah, it's not bad. And I would totally recommend just chew it up and snack on it. Throw it in a salad, throw it in a stir fry is super appropriate. You get the fiber as well as all the good medicine out of it. It's so funny. A lot of people forget. I see posted on Facebook and things like that. You're like, I've got the live plant, what do I do? And they've only seen it come in a package and dried out and so forth. And the idea that you can just eat it, or with adjustments to our menstruum, if we're making like a tincture out of it, you just make sure you have a higher proof alcohol to account for the water in it. But we can make tea out of a fresh plant just the same way we would out of a dried plant. And so I usually use like culinary examples, like we can use fresh rosemary or dried rosemary. We can pick a sage leaf or a mint leaf off of a plant and chop it up and do stuff with it. In the same way, we can buy those things dried and use them. So that's true of a majority of our herbs, that it is unnecessary to process them significantly. So eating an herb off of a plant is about as fresh as you can get, and probably the way it's been used for a really long time, that we don't always need to heat them. That's certainly, as we make complex formulas, that's super appropriate to do. And I've seen a couple people jumping in and out, and we got a decent number of people watching. If you're just joining us, feel free to post any questions that you want, and we'll add it to a queue. We've still got a couple more, but I always need more, and I kind of try to choose the detail and depth and how many stupid stories I tell based on how many questions I got in the queue. Get that one. And if you're just joining us and you don't know it, I'm Bob Linde. I'm an acupuncture physician and a registered herbalist with the American Herbalist Guild, director of the School of Herbal Studies, and the owner of Acupuncture and Herbal Therapies here in St. Petersburg, Florida. We have a variety of practitioners here. We have 4 acupuncture physicians. We've got 3 herbalists on staff. We have practitioners here Monday through Saturday, and we've got a student clinic 3 nights a week. Definitely call for an appointment. But Monday night is acupuncture interns from Dragon Rise's school in Bradenton. Tuesday night is my senior Western herb students getting practice, doing a full intake and putting together customized herbal formulas. And on Wednesday night is my senior Chinese herbalist students, them getting the same thing, detailed evaluation, and either putting together custom formulas or recommending specific Chinese pre-made formulas, pills and so forth. All of them work with diet, lifestyle, and so forth. We've also got a full apothecary. If you're like, I need $1 worth of chamomile, you can come in here and get access to all of our extensive Chinese and Western herbs, bioregional herbs, and a few Ayurvedic herbs. We have a lot of Central and South American cool stuff that you never hear about. And of course, we've got the herb school with both the Western and the Chinese herbal programs here. Both are about 2 years long. And then we've got a ton of standalone classes, and all of our classes are available both live in person in the classroom, which I personally like the best, and we've also got Zoom, so you can get all of the stuff no matter where you are. You can enjoy the classes, and you'll always get the I missed a couple of questions there. You can always get a recording. We'll always give you the recording if you've already paid for the class, and you get to sit through any of the classes, or most of the classes. If you've taken them before, you can sit through them again. It's just like this open forum. It's way too much information. Flaxseed, oops, gotta write that. Flaxseed and oregano, and what was can you talk about EDTA? EDTA. All right, cool, I got this. There's also, this weekend, we did a lousy job of advertising it, but I'm doing a 2-day herb-drug interaction class. It's going through some basic pharmacology, looking at preventing herb-drug interactions, also positive herb-drug interactions, the energetics of herbal medicine, the energetics of prescription medications is a class I taught at AHG a couple years ago that was a big hit. I think I taught that somewhere else. If all of a sudden I lose the computer, it's because I hear lots of lightning outside, and you never know when it's going to knock out the cable or the electricity. So if we do get knocked off and the power's out, I'm just going to call it a night, but hopefully I'll get to these next couple of questions that we've got in the queue. If you're like, oh my God, I don't want to invest in that much time and it's no notice because I'm teaching it in 12 hours, next Friday, so not today, a week from today, is a free herb-drug interaction class where I'm going to go through the basics of preventing herb-drug interactions. I think it's super appropriate for every level. I used to teach this one at least once a year, and it's been a couple of years, so I'm way past due. It is going to be on Zoom. It's also live. So you do need to register. You can go to the Herb School, the traditionsherbschool.com, and register for that class. I know we've got like 25 in person right now. We've got space for a few more, and I just assume a gazillion online. There's a bunch of other good classes coming up. Let me see. There's all of our Thursday night classes are appropriate for every level, and just kind of seeing what's of the most interest. I want to say August 22nd is Herbal Medicine and Mental Health. I believe that's being taught by Sierra, and I'm super excited about that class. I will be sitting in on that one because I still feel like I'm learning and have more to learn. She is an expert, and although I'm sure she'll touch on things like depression, anxiety, she's going to be addressing more serious things like bipolar disorder and schizophrenia, and doing a deep dive on all of that, and I'm super excited. I had tried to get the two of us co-teaching at a conference on that. So our next open forum is the 30th, and we do this on the last Friday of every month. There's a plant sale on Saturday, August 31st, and Susan, I know you're in here, but feel free to put more because I should have copied the whole thing. But the next West Coast Florida chapter of the American Herbalist Guild is also on August 31st. I believe it's at 6 o'clock. We're going to meet at Dragon Rises School in Bradenton. Two words. Ooh, cool. You guys are going to make me work tonight. And Lyme. All right. Piece of cake. I can do that in 5 minutes. No, I'm just kidding. And I don't know. I have a new phone, so I don't know how to turn anything off. Long story. But that we'll be doing an herb walk there, just literally around their property, which is going to be challenging because I think I'm leading it. And I donated about $150 worth of plants to them to start a teaching garden there at the acupuncture school. And then we're going to do a tour inside. And look at some of the cool Chinese herb stuff that they've got indoors, and talk a little bit about Chinese medicine and all that kind of stuff. So certainly if you just want to check it out, it's a good way to check out the place. They've got a student clinic there, and if you're thinking of coming to sunny Florida and thinking about acupuncture school, it's a great place to go. They have a nice program, and they're really an interesting school in the way they go. All right, I'm going to start trying to cover some of these things that get back to answering all the cool questions. We did dogs and horses. Now I gotta be able to read my stuff. Oh, the black seed. So black seed is an herb that's been used in, oh, hey, Maureen. I didn't even see who wrote it. Black seed is an herb that's been used in Middle Eastern medicine quite a bit. So Anani Tibbs, this is huge, North Africa. And it's obviously in modern times it starts to, across the bay and all that, across the pond and all that. So it is a phenomenal herb. If you've ever taken the black seed oil, it's very strong, almost like a strong, acrid, aromatic, garlicky kind of thing for it. And people are taking this long term for pretty much everything. And admittedly, the Greeks and the Iranians and all the Middle Eastern countries there used it kind of as this panacea kind of thing. And anytime I see a panacea where it's good for everything, cures everything, I'm like, yeah, that's probably not the best choice. And so I love it for respiratory illnesses, especially when it's like sticky phlegm. So I would say not for prevention of COVID, but if you're like, you got COVID, if you're like, for whatever reason, you don't want to take the Paxlovid, or it's not having the positive effects, or walking pneumonia, whatever. But if you have a sticky phlegm in your lungs for whatever reason, I love black seed oil for that. It's touted for 1,000 other things, but I tend to use it acutely for specific lung issues, which I think it does a phenomenal job, especially for that stuck phlegm in the lungs. It is warming, so sometimes it increases hot flashes and things like that. Acutely, that's a good thing. If you're trying to get rid of hot flashes, it's a bad thing. So I don't encourage the daily use of it just because it's good for you and Google said it. I know it's very popular with the followers of Dr. Sebe. I just don't find it a benefit, and it's expensive. Like if you're like, I have to choose all the supplements, which ones do I take every single day? That would not be on my list. It would be nowhere on it. It would be something, and I keep it in my cabinet in case I get COVID or a sticky lung condition of some sort. So, and the oil of oregano, kind of the same idea. Oil of oregano is an essential oil inside of a capsule, usually with a little bit of carrier oil to make it a little bit less caustic. Usually it's in a capsule, and I do think it should be in a capsule. I have seen it where it's just a dropper and people are taking it. I don't recommend that. Essential oils, it is probably the only essential oil I recommend internally. As a general rule, essential oil should not be done internally, and allowing it to go through your touch your esophagus and all the parts in between, I wouldn't recommend it. And again, it is a phenomenal antimicrobial. And so if you're actively sick, oil of oregano is a good idea. If you've got small intestinal bowel overgrowth, I think it's a great approach to continue to knock that back as you're continuing trying to fix stuff. Again, it's very drying, and it does kill the good flora off. So it should be, well, let me back that up. If you're like, oh, I'm getting some crappy lung thing, or I got food poison, I want to protect myself from getting it any worse, you take some oil of oregano, have a good time. Nothing wrong with that. It is definitely a good option. It's very similar to taking an antibiotic. But with small, and so if you take it until you're well, and then you need to take probiotics. You can take it with it or after, either one. I like taking it with probiotics the same day that you take the oil of oregano. In the case of SIBO, small intestinal bowel overgrowth, I'm seeing a growing number of issues related to that, and I think it's because of not COVID itself, but the stress of COVID, that a lot of people's stomach acid basically disappeared. And I don't know about anybody else, but I probably had a few comfort foods during that time to make me feel better at a very stressful time in all of our lives and the whole world's life. And so once that stomach acid goes away for any significant period of time, then we start to see gut dysbiosis, where we get some of the wrong yeast or bacteria growing just underneath the stomach in the upper part of the small intestine. And it causes a lot of bloating, belching, malabsorption, fatigue, a lot of food sensitivities if it's been going on for a long time. undigested food, nutritional deficiencies, all of that kind of can come from SIBO. There's a fairly easy test for small intestinal bowel overgrowth, SIBO. Basically, you drink some sugar water and blow into a bag, and they measure the various gases that come out. The medical treatment for it is antibiotics, antifungals, is usually what they use. They give you like a 2-week round of that, and it knocks it back. It doesn't address the underlying problem, which is kind of one of those things that too often happens with Western medicine. They don't go, how come? I'm going to say just about every single case I've seen, it has been from low stomach acid. The HCl, hydrochloric acid tablet, or pills, are usually the treatment. But with small intestine, it is one of the only times that I know of, I actually do recommend people do the medical treatment and follow it up with herbs, one of which is oil of oregano, because the 2-week course that they do isn't sufficient. It frequently takes 6 months to a year, and it's one of the only times I don't recommend probiotics with the antibiotics. Probiotics tend to make SIBO worse. And so you almost have to kill off the entire gut flora in the small intestine and then rebuild it. So usually we avoid probiotics for 1 to 3 months as we eliminate sugar, carbs, fruit, all the things that might feed yeast or bacteria, whilst we're doing lots of killy stuff, oil of oregano and so forth. And once we get those symptoms under control, the bloating, belching, all that kind of stuff, that all this time giving hydrochloric acid if there are signs that it's necessary in the capsule, and then we start to rebuild the gut flora with good bacteria. I don't recommend kombucha at all. I find that generally causes an aggravation of SIBO symptoms. I know a lot of people tout that as it's a miracle and does all of this. I've not found that to be true. I like to, once we destroy the gut flora, then we build it back with the various probiotics that you can buy over the counter. Oil of oregano, yeah, and I don't ever recommend oil of oregano on a daily basis. That's like taking an antibiotic every day to prevent something. So it might work, but it's going to have side effects long term. Cool, and I'm avoiding the EDTA because I don't have a whole lot to say. So let me go back. I missed a couple here. Neuropathy, hands and feet neuropathy. Sorry, I missed that one earlier. Now I have stuff written all over my scratchy pad here, so pardon my all over the place. So neuropathy, there are, it's fancy talk for nerve pain in the hands and feet. There are a number of different causes for that. So certainly blood sugar can be a cause for that. Reduced blood flow from any number of different circulatory, you're welcome, any number of different circulatory issues, and so it can be a side effect from chemotherapy and radiation. So if you're dealing with neuropathy, make sure you understand why you have neuropathy. So, you know, some things are very easy to work with, other things more challenging. Frequently, if it's post-chemo radiation, it doesn't feel temporary because it can last for 2 to 4 years, but it really is. My go-to, like just generically for neuropathy when it's just hands and feet, is St. John's wort oil topically. It's very safe to do it topically, and it needs to be done once or twice daily. I mean, if you miss a day, the world doesn't end. But it usually takes about a month or so. It starts to have some real benefits. It's one of the things that St. John's wort is best for is physical and energetic nerve-related stuff. Excellent. If they're on zero medications, like no over-the-counter medications, they're not taking birth control, no nothing, St. John's wort is a great safe herb internally. It just should never be combined with any kind of medication. So if they're on zero meds, doing St. John's wort internally for nerve-related stuff, even better. The other thing I really like is, and this is just generic across the board for all types of neuropathy, alpha-lipoic acid. And that's an over-the-counter supplement. It's not an herb, but it's kind of the go-to, like, I don't know, we'll figure out what's wrong, but start taking that alpha-lipoic acid. And just bottle dosage, because it depends on brands and concentrations, and there's 2 or 3 different types. I honestly don't have a big opinion about it. Lots of people do who know it better than I, but I haven't found a significant difference between all of those. Alpha-lipoic acid, just very protective to the circulatory tissues, nerve tissue, liver tissue. It's why I take it. And generally is considered a very safe supplement. And this is a newer thing that I was kind of like, whatever. And they've started doing that in some of the chemo labs around here. And so it's normal if you're doing chemotherapy for cancer, you're going to get neuropathy in your hands and feet. And it really sucks. And so they've started doing ice baths during the chemo and for the few hours after chemo. And I've got, I want to say like 3, I remember the first time somebody said it, I was like, well, I don't know why you can't do it, but like, I don't know, I never heard anything about it. And then I found an article on it, very new research, and it's been so successful that the next 3 patients I had going through chemotherapy were specifically directed to do that while they were in the chemo center. They're sitting there with their hands in a bucket of ice water, and they take it out to play with their phone or whatever and put it right back in the bucket. And all 3 of them have gone through chemo now, 0 neuropathy, which is nuts. I've never seen that happen. And it was the usual chemotherapy. There was no special kind of new chemo. It was because they were putting their hands and feet in ice, cold water / like everybody does the ice plunge and so forth. So that's my go-to for prevention with chemotherapy, especially, we've got the whatever the stupid cancer center is here, is pretty cutting edge. And so if you're not in a place with cutting edge research, that may not be getting instituted in a small town. So that's one of those things that we can spread the word, and it will either do nothing, but it won't hurt. So it's either going to help or do nothing. It's not going to hurt. It's not going to affect the chemo in a negative way. So there's no reason not to do that. Obviously, blood sugar, elevated blood sugar is a very common cause. And it's funny, I had so many people who say, well, like, no, my blood sugar is fine. The doctor says it's fine. And their fasting blood sugar, their morning fasting blood sugar is like 99. And their A1C is 5.7. But their diet is poor, their stress level is high, they have high blood pressure, they're elevated cholesterol. So their whole body is inflamed, and their pancreas, which secretes the insulin that helps to regulate blood sugar in their body, is screaming for help, and they're starting to show insulin resistance. And what it is they've got every symptom of diabetes, but their blood work hasn't crossed the magic line to give them a medical diagnosis. So if you're lucky, you'd be given the diagnosis of pre-diabetes. I have so many people who are like, well, as soon as I get diabetes, then I'm going to change my diet, or then I'm going to start exercising, or then I'm going to take the supplements, and so forth. So for folks who are getting neuropathy, walk in the line of blood sugar issues for whatever reason. If you start treating yourself as if you're diabetic by dramatically getting that blood sugar and A1C down into the good range, like 5.7 is walking the line. 99 is, so your morning blood sugar should be under 95. I like to see A1Cs under 5.4. You'll watch that neuropathy start to improve if it is a blood sugar issue. Again, the St. John's wort, alpha-lipoic acid, good combination. If it's from nerve damage, St. John's wort oil will help. Maybe the alpha-lipoic acid. That's a harder beast to get around. What are the reasons? Why do we get neuropathy? Ooh, scary sounds. Poor blood circulation, of course, is an issue, and there's so many possible reasons for that. Oh, hemp treats for the puppers. You want a treat? Yes, because you're getting scared of the stuff. And so always with pretty much, oh, do you want that? Sit. Good dog. Yeah, you don't, you hate those, I know. Eat it anyway, it's good for you. Sorry, I don't have the good dog treats out. Most dogs like this. This one's finicky, and they're digestive treats. But they have CBD in there. Did you lose your treat? Do you want another one? Did you get it? Do you want another one? Is that good? Yes. Sorry, you get to see me torturing puppies. Yeah, neuropathy. Those are the biggies. And know that it's not going to change fast. Oh, I know what. There was something else I wanted to say. Acupuncture really can be helpful for any type of neuropathy pain. Some of the points are kind of weird. Sometimes they're around. So I always say, like, go see an acupuncturist. Even community acupuncture is an inexpensive way to get it more frequently. Also, that's something a student clinic would be able to handle as well. Cayenne peppers might help. So there's two ways cayenne pepper can work. One is for the circulation, so it's not a bronchial dilator, vascular dilator, so it opens up the blood vessels and increases blood flow. So from that perspective, it can be helpful. I don't love it topically. A lot of people use the capsaicin topically, which is cayenne pepper topically. It works, but it does it by overloading kind of the heat sensors in the body, and so it shuts down the nerve functions. It might help a little bit, but the goal is to fix that junk. So internally, a little aggressive for me. I love spicy food, but straight up cayenne tincture or something, that I'm getting old and grumpy, I think, that I can't handle that anymore. So nothing wrong with doing cayenne, not going to hurt anything, and very specific for the circulatory, where you kind of get that pins and needles, heavy numbness, but that means there's also a larger circulatory issue that needs to be addressed. And so just figuring out what that is from a physical or an energetic standpoint and getting the right stuff in there. Okay, we got the neuropathy. I almost forgot your neuropathy on there. Tapeworms, because I just like talking about weird parasite things. So Lyme, we'll try to get to that one. But so tapeworms are a interesting thing. So parasites is a common thing for. Oh yeah, there you go. Tapeworms are a type of parasite, intestinal parasite. It comes usually from the soil or uncooked foods, unwashed hands, the way a lot of parasites come. It is the segmentation, it kind of looks like a tape measure, like little segmented white things in your poop. Are tapeworms. They can get ridiculous. They can cause nutritional deficiencies if allowed to get too big and set up camp. And it's one of my tapeworms are my poster child for one of the reasons extra weight on the belly, on the breast. Let me see. We'll see if we can get to that one, Tammy. And hey, oops, and I missed something else. Wait a second. Oh yeah, I didn't forget your colt's foot. I got that one down. Under breast belly. Okay. So tapeworms actually clamp onto the intestine or into the intestinal wall. So if you sort of kill it, or a lot of parasite cleanses really just make you poop a lot. They put some senna in there, and they put something like black walnut or whatever, and that's great. But it will either not affect a tapeworm, or it will leave it stuck on your intestinal wall because it literally clamps on. So when we're looking at parasites in general, there's living critters in there that are little squirmy guys. and there's also eggs. And so it is important to know that there are specific herbs for specific critters. We need to know what type of critter it is, and we need to look at what its life cycle is. Because if you just kill the active little boogers, even if they're not attached to the intestinal walls and they're swimming around, yay, you see some weird wormy things in your poop, and you're like, hallelujah, I'm cleared. And then 3 weeks later, you stop taking it, and that's when the eggs start to hatch, and it doesn't make it. And so different life cycles for different critters. And so I always recommend a poop test. There's also bloodborne parasites. There's ones that have biofilms and so forth. So really important that there's amoebic parasites. And I've had people contact me from South America. We're doing all the traditional stuff because they're used to worm parasites like pinworms, and all of their treatments don't work because there's a biofilm with amoeba that's like really camped out. And so you have to take a much different approach, and sometimes a more toxic approach. So I always say, let's find out what that crap is before we just start throwing toxic herbs at somebody. So tapeworm, sorry, I digress. I get a little ranty about parasites sometimes. You need an antispasmodic with your tapeworms. And so Jamaican dogwood is great, kava is great, and then various killy things. For tapeworms, for most intestinal ones, just a poop test. And so, nobody wants to, I find pooping in a bucket, I usually will tell people take a plastic garbage bag with a tie strap and put it in a 5-gallon bucket and then sit on the bucket and poop in there. And they'll give you a kit to stabilize your poop and put it in. That goes to a lab. And some poor slob has to go through and look at the poop and find either segments, which is usually what you see with a tapeworm, or the eggs from various critters. Sometimes they only look for the most common ones. Tapeworm's a no-brainer, that would show up very well. But a lot of places are going to miss more obscure stuff. So looking to a tropical infectious diseases person sometimes is necessary. When they're bloodborne ones, one of the things you look for, just, presumably I recommend to all my patients, all my clients, herbs don't have the answer for everything. There's things that we can see as herbalists, especially if you're doing energetic, tongue and pulse and things like that. There's things that we see that Western medicine completely has no idea what we're doing, talking about that both treatment and prevention of a variety of different medical conditions sometimes. There's stuff that the MDs see that I would never see, or I'm not good enough to see, I should say. I can't look at you and tell you what your cholesterol level is or which blood sugar. I could guess. I might be right occasionally. So I like blood work, and the really basic CBC, complete blood count with differential, which shows the different types of immune white blood cells, and the CMP, the complete metabolic panel. Whenever you do, like, I'm going to go do my annual blood work, every doctor should order those. I like extra stuff on top of it. So in the CBC with differential, and the differential is important, and you sometimes, depending on how good your doctor is, you have to ask specifically for the differential. And there is one of the values that they'll give you is EOS, Echo Oscar Sierra, eosinophils. And if that is high out of range, it's not only intestinal parasites, but it's frequently indicative of some sort of usually intestinal parasites, and would then allow the doctor to order a poop test. Sorry, big scary thunders, yeah. We had 4 people hospitalized in downtown St. Pete yesterday from a similar scary storm. But so I really like things like a CBC and the differential specifically for that. There's if you look on the school's website under the resources, there's a book there, Functional Medicine Blood Tests. It's not ridiculously expensive. I won't say it's cheap, but it's probably $50 or something. I use that in clinical practice. I'm probably going to have to buy another one because I've worn this one out just about. But it really explores that, like, it's not always that something has to be out of range. Some things, when we look at them in combination of other values, or even something like the eosinophils, even halfway up, is usually indicative of something like a food sensitivity. And so looking at those functional blood works of the really boring basic stuff can give us so much information that's just being ignored by the MDs, and is better oftentimes addressed from somebody who's got the time to look at stuff. So without a doubt, like, we need to look at our anti-parasitic herbs. My running joke: if your dog or your cat sleeps in your bed, you probably do have, especially if you have an outdoor animal or a half outdoor, half indoor animal, you probably have parasites. Pinworms are really common in dogs and cats, and they show up at night. Great way to check for pinworms: check your dog's butt with a flashlight after midnight. And so cats too. And if you see a little grain of rice that seems like it might be moving, your dog has pinworms. If your dog has pinworms, you got pinworms. Its primary symptom, besides grains of rice on your butt, you'll have an itchy butt only at night. You won't have it the rest of the time. And so remember, you got to treat the dog, the cat, you, the kids, and wash your bedding, because they frequently will travel through the bedding at night. And then I won't tell you, you can Google it. I won't tell you how it gets into your body because you won't be happy. And for cats, they'll frequently go and bury their poop. The outdoor cats, or you're like, oh, I got little kids and they all keep itching their butt. I don't understand why. Shine a flashlight in their butt after midnight. But the cats love to bury their poop in the kids' sandbox. If they got like little kids, they got a little fun thing to making whatever out in the sandbox. Really good chance that that's the source of the pinworms. Kids who eat dirt are frequently getting pinworms from that. And so gardeners that like to play in the dirt, and sometimes we're digging a hole and we're shoveling, we're getting some dirt in our mouth, you might have pinworms or tapeworms for that matter. Undercooked meats certainly give us some of our other scarier stuff. So unwashed vegetables, generally we try to keep poop, even though it's a great fertilizer, it also carries a lot of critters that we don't want. And so if you only eat well-cooked vegetables, you probably get away with it. But the second you start throwing some bean sprouts in your salad, or you get some greens, if you're using poop as your fertilizer, you might get in trouble. Lyme disease, holy crap. I wish I could sum up Lyme disease in a very short thing. I've seen my share of cases of Lyme disease, both acute and chronic. For acute Lyme disease, like, oh crap, look at that tick, and only 50% of the people get the bullseye rash, go take the antibiotics. I hate antibiotics as much as the next person, but I don't know of any herbs or herb combination that is as likely to be successful as 2 weeks of doxycycline, or there's alternates to that, but it's usually 2 weeks of doxycycline. So for any kind of, I think I got bit by a tick in the last 3 months, please take the antibiotics. You can back that up with any number of herbs to make the antibiotics work better. Take probiotics to minimize your side effects. There's so much you can do. What happens more often, and I will say there's a lot of different opinions of how soon after a tick in bed. Like, I hate to say it, I bet you I like to play in the woods, so once a month maybe I pull a tick off of me from going hiking wherever. I've been traveling up to Michigan a lot lately, and so there's a lot of ticks. North Carolina, there's ticks. Florida, there's ticks. So Lyme disease exists everywhere in the world, and there's a lot of folks that say a tick has to embed for a certain amount of time, and the number varies. I read more consistently about 36 hours. I say tick check every 24 hours because I'm not waiting. And then there's debates of like, well, you have to get the right tool to get them in so you don't. I was like, I pull those suckers out so fast your head will spin and I make sure they die. If you happen to live in the Northeast where there's literally it's epidemic, there would be nothing wrong with doing the homeopathic with your antibiotics. I would not trust that because chronic Lyme disease will change your life and not in a fun way. So nothing wrong with taking that with your antibiotics, but I don't know that one, but I wouldn't trust it. The reality is I'm going to get that out as fast as I can. If you live in a place where it's epidemic, like the Northeast, you can save the ticks you pull off and send them into a lab to see if it carries Lyme. So you like put it on a piece of tape and stick it into a cardboard and send it off to the labs. I off the top of my head, I don't remember the names of the labs where you send them, or I think some of them have a cost involved, some don't. But I'm going to say I'm hypersensitive. I literally feel a tick crawling on me, so I usually get them before they get in me. I do a very thorough and somewhat embarrassing tick check every single night after I walk around in the woods, because you never know where they're going to show up, and they love in the crack of your butt, in your genitals, in folds, armpits, the cuff of your socks, your underwear cuff, and your bra cuff. So anywhere the clothes are tight, those little boogers like to go in. They seem to really like, and of course your hair behind your ears and things like that. They tend to go, it's like if they were on the middle of my belly, I would see it looking in the mirror. The reality is it's like they know, and so they go where we can't see or reach comfortably. So have a friend, check for ticks, get those suckers off of you as fast as possible. Watch for flu-like symptoms shortly after. Certainly the bullseye rash is the classic tell that a vaguely competent doctor, even at a walk-in clinic, should be able to go like, yep, that sure looks like Lyme disease. Take a picture of it to show it to them. But if you get flu-like symptoms shortly after that, assume that you got Lyme disease, because not all of them show the bullseye rash. Half the time there is no rash, or it's in a place where you wouldn't see it anyway. Somewhere I have some pictures of somebody like, oh, is this? I was like, oh my God, go take antibiotics. For chronic Lyme disease, there's Bruner and a lot of other folks, there's protocols. I don't do any of those. Nothing wrong with like looking at what the research and so forth says, but I am a fan of treating what you see. And so Lyme disease based on the actual Lyme spirochete itself, but there's all the co-infections that are related species of little critters. And so some people get fatigue and brain fog, some people get joint pain, some people get a weird cough, some people get migraines. There's so many, there's literally hundreds of different ways that Lyme disease shows up. So to say this combination of herbs or supplements is good for everybody with Lyme disease, I find lacking when we can customize based on energetics or symptoms and so forth. So that is literally a weekend class wouldn't do it justice. What I always recommend with it is don't Google herbs that are good for Lyme disease. That is fraught with problems, and some of the non-herbal approaches to that may have their own set of adverse effects. I am a fan of energetics, and so looking at how it manifests and combining the herbs together. So find somebody who has a system of evaluating you as an individual with Lyme disease, not treating Lyme disease. And that's a personal opinion. I've seen at least as good a success as I've seen the other people who are throwing everything under the sun. The homeopathic, I've heard of it, but I don't. Homeopathy is not my in my wheelhouse. Next life, I'm going to learn that. I generally think of homeopathic as safe, but it's not safe if we forego an important medical treatment. And I would say that's true of herbal medicine as well. And I wish I could say, I've seen so many gadgets. I don't know. Some of my students, we do a camping trip as part of our advanced class and our Chinese program that required an overnight camping trip. And I hate to say it, there's ticks out there, and every once in a while we'll get one or two on folks. And certainly insect repellent is helpful. I'm not able to use DEET. It literally causes, DEET is the primary ingredient in most of your deep woods off and all of that. All of the usual stuff is using DEET in various concentrations with other stuff. And the DEET is a neurotoxin, and it really it makes me very sick. I had more than my share back in the day when I didn't know any better. And so I can't use it. So that's certainly one way to minimize your exposure to ticks. Full clothing with the, banded around, but it's like, do that now in Florida, you're going to die of a heat stroke instead of a tick disease. So covering your body as best you can with clothing, making sure that clothing is checked as well as your body. There was a cool gadget that's like emits some sort of ultrasonic sound that was supposed to keep ticks away. I think 2 or 3 of my students bought that last time. I think it worked, but not everybody got ticks on them. So I don't know whether it had any value or not, but absolutely nothing wrong with it. That's other than it dinged their pocketbook $30 or something. It's not harmful to use some of those things. So look at risk-benefit ratio. As long as it's not harmful, even if it does 0 things, it's nothing, but always do tick checks. Always, get them off of you as fast as possible and watch for your signs and symptoms. I'll also say that Lyme is it used to be you made fun of that you got gaslit by most doctors because doctors didn't know anything about Lyme disease. Finally, not the FDA, the Department of Health, the National Department of Health recognizes Lyme as an epidemic in our country, and it's not limited to North America. It is South America, Europe, Asia, and so forth. It's just most common here. And they recognize that it is a growing epidemic and that our numbers are probably not recorded because they're not testing for it unless somebody demands it or they self-test, and the tests that they have are less than ideal unless you get some of the better labs that isn't paid for by insurance, iSpot and some of the other ones. The IGenics, I think, is the other one that's really good. So it's hard to get an accurate diagnosis. But what we see is a number of other tick-borne diseases. The scariest one, it's not that scary, but it is that scary, is alpha-gal, where it makes you literally allergic to meat. And that comes from the Texas Lone Star tick. And there is, ask a vegan who works really hard on avoiding all meat products, how hard that is, how it's snuck into medication, glazes on supplements, and all kinds of other places. So somebody who becomes highly allergic to meat doesn't understand why all of a sudden they can't have barbecue, but also why they're getting weird rashes because of their belt or their elastic, why their chapstick all of a sudden causes their lips to blister up. And that one is not, it's just starting to come up on the radar the last few years. I've already met 3 or 4 people with alpha-gal just in my local vicinity here that they've got somewhere. It is showing up in more and more states. It is in Florida, it's in Michigan, Texas, North Carolina. But if they're in all of those, that means everywhere west of the Mississippi, it's guaranteed to be. It's just nobody's tested for it yet. So that's one to be looking for as well. I have not found, other than the avoidance of all animal products that contain that alpha-gal gene, I don't know of any effective treatments for that. And I have not had the opportunity to treat it yet, which is, but I've not heard of any either. That's the one. Who else have I missed? Oh, coltsfoot. I didn't talk about coltsfoot. Sorry. Coltsfoot is, what is that, Tesselago, and I totally can't remember the Chinese name for coltsfoot. Coltsfoot is also in the Chinese Medica. I'm embarrassed to say I don't remember the pinyin name for that. But if you look under Tesselago in your Chinese books, it's in there. It's also a Western herb, and it's really good for cough. It's primarily used for wet cough. It's a nice bronchial dilator. The downside is it contains, is it PAs or As? I think it's PAs, the polycytic alkaloids. Man, there is thunder and lightning out there. I don't like its long-term use because of its potential issues. As a short-term use herb, as a tea or a tincture, either one is fine. With informed consent by the client that there is, a potential concern for liver health, I think it's a great herb. The worst part about coltsfoot, because it has a limited growing range. It grows at altitude in colder areas, frequently right at like the tree line kind of thing. And as we see the melting of the mountain glaciers and the permafrost, things like that are starting to go, we're losing two herbs. Coltsfoot is actually becoming harder and harder to find, and not because of concern with safety. Literally, its growing range is vanishing from global warming. And the other one is arnica. It's now up to about $300+ a pound. And arnica, of course, also has some toxicity associated with it. But it's become almost ridiculous to find it, again, because of the shifting temperature and that limited altitude growing range. I'm worried that we may also run into some issues like that with things like OSHA, that those things only grow in certain elevations. Maca is another one that's at risk for that. So nothing wrong with coltsfoot. I wish we still had access to Ephedra chinensis, Ma Huang in Chinese. There's a longer version of that, but unfortunately you can't really get Ma Huang imported into the U.S. unless, I forget whether there's anybody from Canada here tonight. Canada, you can still import Ma Huang, although it has some issues because it contains ephedrine. That's mostly why it got banned here in the U.S. and a number of other countries. If you're extracting the ephedrine out of there and concentrating, it causes heart racing and all that. But as a bronchial dilator, it's phenomenal. Right. Oh, you're just here in time for me to say goodbye. No. And also, I almost forgot, Sida. And we have Sida growing. You have Sida growing in your backyard. And you can read a lot about Sida under its Ayurvedic name, Bala, and Sida Sp. So there's cordifolia is the one that's frequently talked about. We have acuta, rhombifolia. All of the roots of this plant contain ephedrine, like the Ma Huang. I prefer it I tend to use it more for chronic lung issues, where coltsfoot's more acute lung issues, mostly because of its toxicity. So from that perspective, I really prefer the Sida root. It's also it's an Ayurvedic herb that is referred to as being tridoshic, and tridoshic means it's good for every body type. So Pitta, Vata, Kapha, or if you ever went to a yoga class and you were like, oh, you're really Kapha, you're really Vata, whatever. So Bala or Sida is good for all three because it's in the mallow family and it's moistening. And it prevents some of those side effects that we see from things like Ma Huang, and it's not toxic, so we don't see the coltsfoot issues with that. Mullein is also an interesting one. I know you say lung, I'll say mullein. I don't use mullein that much. And it's funny, I use the flowers, and I use the root of it more than I use the leaf. And not because it's a bad herb. Working with it dried, it's really irritating to the lungs. If you don't strain the tea, it's really irritating the lungs and causes coughing. And it's certainly helpful and soothing, but I work with marshmallow way more. I really like the moistening lung effects. I love the cedar. All parts of the cedar can be used. The cedar leaf can be used kind of like mullein because they're both in, cedar leaf can be used like marshmallow because they're both in the mallow family and have an affinity to the lungs. And so there's so many other herbs I prefer to mullein leaf. That said, it's a beautiful plant, so I love growing it. I do use it for smokers. So if somebody's already a smoker, using herbal smokes in lieu of their tobacco, either to dose slowly off of their the tobacco, but also if they're a smoker and there's cannabis, either they can't smoke cannabis because of their job or they don't like the effects from it. You can use for acute anxiety things like mullein and skullcap. So I like it as a smoking blend because the mullein seems to be less toxic to the lungs and has a burn very similar to tobacco, where it's an even burn. So you can mix your herbs into that, roll them up in a joint, put them into a pipe, however they choose to do it. I don't give it to non-smokers. And that's a personal preference. Mullein is a great herb with a long history, but it takes more preparation than most people are going to take the time to do. And we don't want people to have an adverse... Somebody's like, oh, I'm going to go make some mullein tea. I hear it's good for my lungs, and they start coughing their guts out. Then their herbs are stupid, it's all a lie, and they're never going to try it again. So either it needs to come with a lot of instruction, or we need to make sure we're using it effectively without side effects. Tinctures, if you're straining the mark out of the menstruum, you should, if you're using a cheesecloth or some sort of fine cloth to strain it, tincture's probably safe. So it's using the fresh herb. Mullein root, though, is specific, and Jim McDonald has a little bit more written about this, but on his website, I always forget the name of his website, but Jim McDonald Herbalist, if you search it, it'll come up. He learned about mullein root, I believe, from the Ojibwa people up there in Michigan area, and used specifically to align the spine, to help with I like it for chronic low back pains, sacroiliac, lumbar sacral, and so forth. I love the root tincture. I like to use the stem as well, so the aerial part on its second year of growth when it goes to flower, because it's a biennial. The mullein stalk I tend to use for more cervical and upper back. The sad thing is very few companies sell the root or the stalk, so you have to really harvest that yourself. I've only used the Florida variety of mullein a few times, but it seems to be helpful. Yeah. I don't know how I got off on mullein, but yeah, it's funny. Everybody else uses it a lot. I almost never use it. And the colt's foot and Sida acuta or rhombifolia or cordifolia. The downside of Sida cordifolia is it is against the law according to the federal government, and so as long as it grows wild in your yard, you're not going to jail. That's awesome. Yeah, it really is a miracle for the spine. The Sida, if you take it across state lines, it's technically illegal, but it's not like they have Sida sniffing dogs at the border. But if you take Sida cordifolia, I believe that's the only one that's actually banned by the feds. You technically could get in big trouble for that. People sell it all the time. I don't sweat it. I don't even think twice about it. But it's good stuff. All right. My voice is tired, and I don't expect anybody to remember all of this. I'm going to upload this onto the YouTube page, Traditions Herb School YouTube page. And all the past Herbal Open Forums are there. And come check out our classes. We've got lots of good stuff going on. You can find our classes either on our website, traditionsherbschool.com, or you can check out the Facebook page for the school. And remember, we can do them all on Zoom, so you don't have to be local to enjoy them. And start to learn your local herbs. Pick some herbs that you know are correct. Start to learn how to use them. Look at the traditional use, energetics, and make sure they're safe with your medications. And I hope I see you before next month in one of these fun classes. Stay dry if you're around here, and enjoy your Friday night. Thanks for joining. Bye. Now I gotta figure out how to turn this off.